Do us a quick favor, guys. Hit the follow, subscribe button. Share this with someone who would benefit from it. And help us grow, as the more we grow, the better the episodes will get. Thanks, guys, for helping us. And let's get into the episode.
And he's here. He is here. Cristiano has entered the building. Welcome, wherever you are, to the Old Trafford Theatre.
Welcome back to this episode of the SCULPTED podcast. Today, I am going through why I love a routine. Now, this one is pretty simple. Routines. Now, I'm sure you've heard of the cliches, the morning routines, all of that. A lot of buzzwords. And typically I steer away from buzzwords, but honestly, routine is not one that I don't disagree with, because I do think it's probably not overused. Maybe a morning routine is overused. But honestly, it definitely has its purpose. I'm not going to be one of those, cringe, what do you even call those? Like, I don't know what you call those, like typical male self-development improver people, although you could argue I am to a degree. I'm not the typical, shower, in the morning, ice bath in the morning, wake up in the morning, do 700 push-ups in the morning. Like, don't get me wrong. I mean, I wouldn't not do that. Like, that's not a bad thing, although I'm not going to say that that's what you have to do, or that's, if you do that, you're not going to succeed. Although, it will help. Like, as stupid as it may sound me say, it will help. Like, it's not actually going to be a hindrance to you. So, routines, why are they so important? Well, simple. When you get on one long enough, there's no deviation outside of it, which is good, because when you deviate outside of something, then there's no structure, there's too much grey, I think. And it allows you to stick and find out what adherence is. If you don't know what adherence is and staying true to your word, then finding a routine is very, very easy to then start to adhere and get on that flywheel effect, because that is actually a real thing. And making marginal gains and progressing day in, day out is very real. And what a routine allows you to do is build that compound effect and to build upon it. So, honestly, routines, as I said, typically I shy away from buzzwords, and normally I don't disagree with the premise of one of those buzzwords, like motivation, passion, or whatever. Normally I don't disagree with the fundamental core of it, although I disagree with the usage of it these days. Now, I don't know what the usage was of it in previous times. Like, I'm not acting like I was around 500 years ago when they were thinking of these words or whatever it was. But the routine one's different for me, weirdly enough. And as I mentioned, it builds structure. It builds all of these good things that aren't a hindrance to you. And that's what's good about it. You don't lose anything from having a good routine where you have non-negotiables, you perform these tasks every day, and it becomes automatic. There's nothing wrong with that. And what you can do on top of that is then start to compound things again, because you become more efficient at it. Your, let's say, 20 minutes of learning a new skill, in the end, you've started to learn as much as you have in that 20 minutes originally as you do in 6 months' time in 5 minutes. Now, I'm not saying you do 5 minutes in 6 months' time. You could, and then try and do something else on top of that with your remaining 15 minutes. But the compound effect is real when you start doing consistent things and you start building and improving on top of them. So that's very, very important. And if you don't have necessarily discipline to continue to do those things throughout the day, then a routine is a very easy way to get the day started or to finish your day. Now, I typically have a evening routine. That tends to work better in my schedule because I go to bed earlier normally. Now, at the moment, I don't have a routine, because if you've been listening to this month's podcast episodes, you know that every single day looks different, and I don't know what tomorrow looks like. So it's just because it's been so busy with me, with trials and etc. So I've only been able to do, actually, I think 2 individual sessions for the past 2.5 weeks that I've been back in Australia. So every other day has been trials, which is honestly really crazy. So I don't have that routine yet. Now, when I find a team, I'll be able to be in that routine, I'll be able to improve. I'll be able to get better. And that's not saying that I'm not getting better now and improving. It's just saying that I don't have that structure to do so, because I do like structure. And I think that it enables you to build upon things because you are in that area of consistency. And when you do consistent things, it just does have that structure of, you can notice and point where you're starting to improve, right? If you're doing things specifically with purpose, you're going to see some results. It may be good or bad, but you're going to be able to attach where those results come from. Simple. That's what it is. You're able to see where those results come from through routine. And that's like a lot of things. If you're doing things through variables, you're always able to see where specific things... Sorry, if you're doing things with variables, you're not able to see where things necessarily come from. What results fruit other results, right? So through routine, you're able to find out what results, and structure, you're able to find out what results come from when. So that is definitely an important thing. What I like about routines, you've already got that. Now, talking about what routine is best for you. Now, I've told you that my night routine is pretty consistent at the moment. More consistent in terms of when I can, but less consistent when it's a bit chaotic. Some nights, like last night, chaotic, got home very late. Took an hour and a half to get back to my grandma's, who lives in Sydney, and I was in Sydney. So it wasn't even the full way home to the Central Coast where I live, which is 2.5 hours from where I was trialing. So that was, I had to adjust to that. And there was no routine there. And as I mentioned, at a later date there will be, but at the moment, because it's so hectic and I've got no structure, there is no routine. But what routine works best for you? Now, what I would say is you've got to find out where you're the least productive. Now, typically people have points of time where they're more productive or less productive. If you're, let's say you're a morning person. Now, I don't know if I even believe in being a morning person or an evening person. I honestly don't know if that's a thing, because I've found for myself I'm pretty transferable. So I don't know if that is a thing. I haven't thought about it enough. I haven't practiced or tested it enough, so I can't comment on that. But if you do consider yourself as a morning person, then maybe you're more productive in the morning and you need to have that. Maybe you need better sleep, therefore a night or an evening routine works better for you. The reason why I like an evening routine for myself is just because it helps me get better sleep. I'm not a very good sleeper. In fact, I would say that I do struggle with sleep. Now, not that I'm not in bed enough. I always get enough sleep, or I at least try to. In recent times, it's been more of a struggle, but normally I'm getting 8 to 9 hours, and I want to get the most out of those 8 to 9 hours. And when I was using Whoop, and you listen to my episodes, you know that I'm not using Whoop anymore due to financial reasons, unfortunately. But if you're able to maximize your efficiency whilst you're asleep, then that's brilliant, right? So I had a point where my 8 hours sleep was your 9 hours, or my 8 hours was your 10 hours. I was getting so much deep sleep and REM sleep that my 8 hours of sleep was equivalent to 10 for others. So that was really good for me. So I was really boosting my efficiency there, and you can only improve that by measuring it. You can only improve what you measure. And that's what Whoop was so brilliant for me, because it put all of these things and it put all of these tangible, measurable results in reality, which was amazing. Something I'd never had before. So routine, finding what works for you. If you're not very productive as soon as you wake up, then a morning routine could be a great way to kickstart that. Figuring what that is for you is completely individual. I can't tell you what that is, but I can tell you the guidelines to finding out what that is. You can figure that out yourself. Now, the routine, sticking with it, and if you find, right, like it may be difficult for you to start a routine. What I would say is start so small that you can't not take action. I mean, literally, do something that is so easy to do, that's just starting your routine, and then just stop there. Just do it, and then stop it. Literally, force yourself to stop it. Even if you're halfway through it, just force yourself to stop it, because you'll find that finding discipline within doing something, you will gradually start to improve it. Now, what I mean, if you find meditating for 15 minutes too scary for you, start with 1 minute only, and do that. That's the only thing that you're doing in your morning. Just meditate for 1 minute. And if you feel like going over, don't go over. Don't go over until, let's say, 3 days in, maybe even a week in, and just continue to improve it each time, or each time you feel like it's necessary to start improving. That could be a week, that could be a month. Now, a month is kind of ridiculous, but improve, measure, and start small. Start ridiculously small. Start so small that you have no excuse but to do it. It should be very, very easy to do this. And then it will become more and more easy the more you do it. Therefore, start so small that there's no excuse for you not to. What's 1 minute? What's one smoothie? What's one X, Y, or Z? What is it, right? It could be so small. There's no problem with starting small because you've got to start from somewhere. And when people go too deep in, too early, if you're to do 15 minutes of meditation, you might do it once, the next day you'll never do it again. And because you never did it that one time, you've already lost. All right? So just start so small and start building on that. I think that's honestly, I'm not going to go too deep into this because I probably would prefer to come with more research and knowledge behind this. So I'm not coming in a little bit ignorant, but I do believe that that's a good little summary for you there. I think it is very individual. You do have to find what works best for you. Ideally, in an ideal world, like for me, every day is a routine. Every day looks the exact same. Every day is mundane, boring, and I know what's happening. That's honestly what I love the most. Now, you may be thinking that's crazy. Why? That's stupid. I would hate that. And maybe that's the difference between myself and yourself, but I think that anyone could actually have that attitude because you crave the end result so badly, the work doesn't matter. So when I love the journey and the process so much, that boring stuff for me, I crave that. I crave that mundane boringness every single day. And that's what works for me. And I don't see why that couldn't work for you. If we're thinking about it on just a scientific level, who's doing the most is typically going to win. And of course, there's things like the compound effect, there's things like reality, right? Reality might have a different say. Nature versus nurture, genetics, things like that, sure. But if we're just to bet our money onto something, right? If I was to bet my money on a dog doing a race and one was training every single day and one was training once a week, statistically, you'd probably go with the dog that trains, every day. And that's just because what it takes one dog to train in 7 weeks, it takes that one dog to do in 1 week. And that's just human nature. Although I was saying dogs. Now, the reason why I was saying dogs is because people who I was just listening to were talking about dog betting. So that was the first thing that came up into my mind. So, stupid analogy, dumb analogy. I literally just could have compared it to humans. And then I did compare it to humans. So that was just stupid. But, yeah, most of the time, you're going to be safe betting on the person who does the most. Now, there is a point where that won't be safe. Well, no, not safe, right? 9 times out of 10, you'll probably be right. But there is always going to be an exception to the rule. And when you're at a competitive level, it gets even more, let's say, mixed and more corrupted, that 9 out of 10. But generally, the more you do in terms of doing it compared to someone else, you will be better at it, right? Most of the time. Take it with a grain of salt, right? It's always going to be situational. It's always going to be individual, but a generic rule is that. Anyways, guys, I hope that you got a bit of an insight there. I don't want to go too into depth, as I mentioned, but I think it should be pretty clear. Just start small. Start so small you have no excuse but to act. Very simple. Very simple. And find what works for you.